this is my presentation on British culture and customs. Before we get into the website, I would like to kind of give some background information on the person I interviewed for this website. So, the person I interviewed was born in Kidlington, which is a village in the United Kingdom. So she spent the majority of her youth in the United Kingdom and then moved to the United States, I believe she said when she was 16 years old. So she kind of has assimilated to the American culture, but she did remember quite a bit about growing up. So kind of going off of that interview, I wanted to research some of the things she talked about and kind of go into detail about what I've learned about those. So let's explore. Okay, so family life will be the first thing we talk about. So from what she told me, family life is a little bit different. Now you kind of have to think, she's 80 years old, so a lot of things have changed since then, but with her growing up, she said she grew up in a very strict household, and her dad was, of course, the breadwinner. He had he was head of the household and everything like that, so kind of similar to the, quote, traditional family life here in the United States. But from what I've researched, kind of to elaborate on that, is, the traditional family in Britain is, consists of, the mom and dad and kids, with divorce becoming easier to obtain and same-sex marriage becoming legalized. That traditional family unit has changed, but family remains to be a great importance today. And so it was very important for her, she said, to have family meals together. Every meal was at the table where they would talk with one another and things like that. So I don't think much has changed in that aspect from what I learned. So, holidays and traditions. This one was really interesting to me. Holidays and traditions, it was really interesting for me. When I spoke with her, she said a lot of the holidays were the same as here in the United States, with the exception of a few others. So, I'm going to kind of go into those differences, and there's also differences in traditions, especially with Christmas. So, let's discuss some of those. So Boxing Day is basically the day after Christmas, December 26th. The origins of this day are kind of debatable. A lot of people think it has to do with receiving boxes from their bosses, and there's just a lot of variations of how Boxing Day began. But essentially, Boxing Day is just an extension of or a continuation of Christmas. It's a day to spend with family and loved ones. It is also the biggest shopping day of the year, and so we can compare that to Black Friday here. And then she also mentioned Guy Fawkes Day, and this was super interesting to me. And she mentioned it was a lot like Halloween. It's in November, so it's the 5th of November. And it marks the day of when Guy Fawkes conspired to set fire to the House of Lords in 1605. And so the failure of this is what they actually celebrate in the United Kingdom. So they celebrate this holiday by having bonfires and fireworks and things like that. And fun fact, if you watch the videos, which I would definitely recommend, they go into a little bit more detail, but this video talks about how I don't know if the V for Vendetta mask they use in that film is actually the mask of Guy Fawkes. So a lot of people will wear the Guy Fawkes mask, and it'll just be this celebration of that day. So pretty interesting. Like I said, click the videos. They're interesting. And then we have Christmas traditions. A couple of traditions that they have during Christmas, which is a little bit different from ours. The food they eat, the woman I interviewed said they had fruit cake every year. It's a tradition, and trifle and things like that. And then they also, of course, have the crackers, which are basically little, how would I explain it? They're just these little canisters that you pull and they make a pop, and they have little gifts inside. The paper hats, they're always in there. That's a tradition in itself, to wear the paper hats and things like that. This video is pretty good. It gives you a more in-depth about how these traditions started and things like that. Just very interesting. All right, so now we're gonna talk about language. So 95% of the population speak the English language, so that makes it the official language of the United Kingdom. However, it does vary in between the regions. So there's many dialects and accents. Interesting fact is the accents can vary regionally by as little as 35 miles. So you travel 35 miles a certain way and the accent and dialect has already changed. So that's pretty interesting. Cockney is a accent spoken by the working class in London, and there's also Scouse, which is originated from Liverpool. If you think of like the Beatles, they had that accent. Here's another video I would recommend. It kind of just goes into depth of many of the accents. These are not all the accents. There's so many. I believe that there was about 50 some odd accents, so quite a variation in the language. And so here are the sites that I got all this information from. Check them out. They're great. The videos too are at the bottom. Just check those out. They're super interesting. And yeah, that is my presentation. Thank you.